students, today we look into the water as a common pool resource. Yesterday we have discussed four bandis and Hiwari Bazar village. Then what changes have come in Hiwari Bazar village with all those things. There was a lot of improvement in the Hiwari Bazar village that we have seen, right? And here, what to call this was the change in Hiwari Bazar village. Once look at this figure given here. Before to 1980, their village was like this in the first figure. And see the last after plantation. Now it is in this manner. So there is a lot of a change in the Hiwari Bazar village. Okay, this shows that the people doing some voluntary labor and digging the continuous counter trenches, right? When rains have come, their grass and some plants have grown. Then after it turned to like this, the last figure. So there is a progress in this what you call Iwari Bazar village. So today we will discuss that to understand that water as a common pool resource. Dear students, in the recent times, from the last few decades, groundwater has become main source for domestic and agriculture use. Everybody depending on groundwater for water use, and that increased the use of groundwater very significant on water availability and access to it. How water is available to the people and how in what way the people access to the water will be decided on groundwater, depending on the groundwater. So from last few decades, everybody for every purpose depended on groundwater for water use, and certain laws are made on groundwater when groundwater usage was very less. Many years ago, when people were not depending on groundwater, at that time certain laws are made on groundwater, and those laws which made on groundwater in those days today down to outdated. What is that? Outdated and inappropriate, which are not correct. Inappropriate means in the sense it is not correct. According to the present situation, these laws which made on the usage of groundwater in the past few decades ago turns to inappropriate. At that time, that means a few decades ago, certain laws were made on groundwater that was correct on those days. But today it is inappropriate and outdated, not suits to the water usage of the groundwater. Understand? So, dear students, there is a laws relating to the groundwater are not correct at present. Today, we see there are many deep tube wells which have a lot of capacity to draw out water. Everybody is in focusing on deep tube wells and extracting much more water. So we want here a fair manner or judicious way of using the water. What is meant by judicious way? What is the way of providing water for all? That is, what is the judicious way? So at present, the laws which are made on groundwater are inappropriate and outdated. The laws which are on groundwater made in those days, today it is incorrect. That is inappropriate. How it is inappropriate? Let's see that. There is a link. The law says there is a link access to the groundwater and land ownership upon which the rules are based. That means the person who have ownership right on land also given ownership right on groundwater under that land. Are you clear? Once again, see, the law says the person, that means an individual who is the owner of a land, also given ownership rights on groundwater under that land. Okay, this is the what a link between ownership of land and ownership of groundwater, ownership of land and access to the groundwater. That is the link today is incorrect. That is wrong. Understand? How it is wrong? Because this link giving ownership rights on groundwater also, as the individual have ownership rights on land, right? There is a basic link between land ownership and access to the groundwater. These are the 2 points you need to understand here. Okay, individuals who purchase the land, then they get ownership rights on the land, and such individuals also given ownership rights on underground water below the land to which he is owner. Understand? So here this link was established on those days to control groundwater. How? The person who have ownership rights on the land, let me check it that the person who have ownership rights on the land, it is that can control water resource. That means no other person can take water from the land, as the ownership is given to one individual. But here we see that there is ownership right on the land does not controls the owner of the land to take water. There is no control on underground water below the land upon which one individual who have ownership rights. Understand? So the water drawn from the underground system, that also consider as property of the person who have ownership rights on the land. That means the person who is the owner of the land also consider also consider owner of the underground water. Understand? So this says that groundwater is mostly controlled by the individuals who have ownership rights on the land. But in this law, one point is says one point is there that landowner was not restricted in using the amount of water, right? Suppose a person is the owner of a land of 2 acres, right? He is the owner of the land of 2 acres and also owner of the underground water below that land, under that land, so that he can take, that means he can extract the large amount of water from the land to which he was owner, right? And here, this what I want to say is meaningless, because how can we apply ownership rights on underground water which is moving from one place to another place, right? It is, water is a flowing resource. Look at here, this is water is a flowing resource, understand? So what is extracted from one bore well or open well depends on water formation, underground water formation in that area, right? That means water in a place is collected there by the rain which is taking place above the surface, right? And water flowing to that area, right? And water use in other area, understand? Let me show you that one figure here, understand? I'm drawing, understand? Look at here, this is the surface, dear students. This is the surface, the line what I drawn. Okay, here is a bore well, right? Bore well 1, and here is there a bore well 2, and here is there a bore well 3, right? And the bore well 3, the person, the owner of the bore well 3 extracting a much water here. Bore well 3 is extracting much water, understand? And whereas the bore well, the owner of the bore well 1 and bore well 2, they are using underground water in a very limited way. So what happens here, when the owner of the third borewell is extracting much more, then water, underground water in borewell 2 and from borewell 1 goes to the borewell 3, right? It means water available to the borewell 3 depends, that means water available to the owner of the third owner depends on water available and water use in borewell 1 and borewell 2, right? These two are extracting very low, understand? Whereas the owner 3 is extracting much more. So what happens here, very soon we see that borewell 1 and borewell 2 becomes dry, and these two owners, borewell 1 and borewell 2, they cannot control the owner of the borewell 3, because what the law says, that owner of the land also owner of the underground water upon under that land. So that is a link, understand? Whereas water available in bore 3 is coming from the bore 1 and bore 2, and rainwater, okay, when rainfall takes place, then rainwater also what to call charges the underground water, right? In this way we see that there is the link between ownership right on the land and also giving ownership right on water, underground water, is inappropriate and incorrect. Understand, right? So it is that how it is flaw we see here, right? Let's try to understand how that law is not correct, that is flawed. Understand, the law is flawed in the sense incorrect. Understand, it is incorrect, the law. Understand how it is incorrect. Underground water which is moving from one place to another place, that does not obey the law made on land part, right? A person who is the owner of 2 acres of land, getting water under his land from other areas, and it moves from that area to another area, it comes from another area to this area. So how can we apply the law that is ownership rights on land also gives ownership rights on underground water? That is wrong. Okay, as water is a flowing resource. Understand? And what is extracted in one area, that means water use in one area, understand, will decide water in another area. Understand, right? And also the underground water is accumulated there because of the rainfall. The 3 points are there here, my dear students. One is, it is what to call water extracted by one individual in one area, or water extracted by the people in one area, and underground rock formation and recharge from rainfall and surface water will decide underground water formation in a area, right? So these are the points which says that water is a flowing resource. So the actions on others in the region will affect that particular well. Just now I have shown the bore well 1 and bore well 2, they are using in a limited way, whereas the bore well 3 extraction is high, right? So over extraction from bore well 3 dries up the bore well 1 and 2. So if in the same manner, in a region where people extract much more water, will dry up water from other regions as water is flowing. Understand? Suppose Nustulapur region, there is much more water extraction is there, and Algunur is where somewhat limited is there, for example. Then water available and water use of the Algunur will decide water available to the Nustulapur. When Nustulapur is extracting much more water, then water in Algunur will be less. It dries up. Understand? So that's the thing. So when a person is given ownership right on underground water along with ownership rights on the land, will be meaningless. It is flat. Understand? So what happens here when this ownership is given? Everybody will be in a competition to arrange deeper and deeper bore wells than their neighbors. And very soon we see underground water will depleted. That means underground water level will be decreasing. Understand? So we see here all the wells are interconnected, right? Just now in the figure I have shown, right? Your borewell in your home is connected with the borewell of others, your surroundings, right? So in a region, we find that all the wells are connected. Understand? So everybody tries to extract much more water. Understand? Right? So if one is extracting much more water, we cannot control him. because he's taking water from his place. Understand? As he is owner of that land, his land. Understand? So he can take much more water, and he can arrange many bore wells also, right? That is the thing we see here. Understand? So what I want to say that the law which is allowing the individuals to have ownership rights on land and also with water is inappropriate. Understand? Right? This is the water point you need to understand here. Understand? So this could be compared with air over a plot of the land. Let us take this example. For example, here I'll conclude in 2 minutes that what it is. This is 1 acre of land, my dear students, and it is another 2 acres of land which is connected to this one, right? If the owner of these 2 acres of land says that to pay money to him from the owner of 1 acre land, as the wind is blowing to 1 acre land. That means wind is moving from one place to another place. When wind is coming from my home to your home, if I ask you to that to pay money for me as the wind is coming from my place, will it be suitable to you? How do you feel? People will laugh at us, right? Because the wind which is blowing cannot obey the law what we made on the land. Understand? Land is constant. Understand? So it is what to call inappropriate law. Understand? Comparing that with a plot air over a land. Understand? So water is a flowing resource, so that it moves from one place to another place, and it does not obey the law which made on the land. Understand? And it is a major source of the people. Underground water is a major source of the people today, because there is uncertainty of rainwater, scanty rainfall is there. Understand? So it affects the stock of water for future generation. As we are extracting much more, it affects the water future generation. Future generation will not get much more water as we extract much more. Understand? So the stock of water available for future generation will decrease as we are extracting much more. So therefore, one cannot be allowed. That means one can't allow individual landowner to extract as much as water as he can wish from his land, as he was the owner of his land. So there should be some restrictions on using the underground water. So for that purpose, we need to de-link. That means de-link in the sense disconnect between that ownership of land and ownership of water, right? That means the person who is the owner of a land will not be the owner of underground water. That should be the point we need to bring into the law. Understand? So the current laws are inappropriate and flawed, that will not suitable for underground water which is flowing resource. Understand? So it is meaningless that the person who is the owner of the land also owner of the water. That is a meaningless. Understand? So there should be what to call a change in the what to call a law, that the person who have ownership rights on the land should not be given ownership rights on underground water. Understand? So when control over the groundwater is disconnected, then there can be, when the ownership rights on the water, underground water is disconnected, then only we'll see the water, underground water can be available for all. Understand? So this is the water class, my dear students.